Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video. And I know it's a Friday and you're just trying to enjoy your weekend, but there's something on this grey man's mind that I feel like I need to move the video from what was originally planned supposed to be next week to this week, because there is very little interest in the actual result and performances right now, and a certain Mr. Cerny himself took it upon himself to pretty much wave goodbye on Instagram, so that pulls it right to the front of the queue. So ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss the Cerny problem. And just in case you're wondering why I've labelled it that way, or you've took offence to Cerny ever being a problem, the longer you watch today's video, the more it'll become clear, because whether he stays or whether he goes, there's going to be problems either way, and that's what I'm going to try to bring you right now in terms of the video, to look at it from not only the player's perspective, but also the club. You know, we've done this previously with the likes of Hadji problem, we've done the Tav problem, we've even done the big Cyril Dessers problem, where I sat here about a year ago and took flack and got shouted at for saying we should keep the laddie. Now I'm the opposite and I'm still getting shouted at, you know what I mean? You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, and that's seemingly where I am now, with some of you down in the comment section below. But again, we're not here for any of them. Their stories have been told. It's time to tell big journeys. But before we get to the problems, let's tell the story of the man himself in terms of his season-long loan, as we're going to combine that obviously in today's video, because something I think has actually been took for granted and we've almost forgot, because we've been hitting the heat so much this season, because there's been so much failure. We're a wee bit dizzy about what on earth was happening before Cerny signed for this club, because Cerny, before a ball was even kicked, had an absolute mountain to climb and a curse that needed to be broken, and that was that right wing spot. Like, genuinely, the right wing spot before Cerny came in and done what he's done this season was almost a meme. It was a joke regarding this football club, because think of a good right winger in the last 15, 16, even 20 years at this football club. Go ahead and try and name a few. I think some of you will maybe jump to the likes of Daniel Candeias as maybe the last time we actually had an out and out right winger, but even that was 6, nearly 7 years ago compared to when he was playing week in and week out. That is 7 years worth of transfer windows in terms of the summer. That's 14 transfer windows if you combine the summer and the winter, and not one since the day Mr. Candeias left have we had anything coming down that right hand side that wasn't named James Henry coming for the right back spot. And again, for me, it becomes more impressive in terms of Cerny's time at this club when you think about, Rangers playing now, it's down the right hand side, isn't it? But it's Cerny on the ball, he's great, kick the ball to Cerny, let's see him score, let's see him assist. But again, for years it wasn't like that. I mean, when Ryan Kent was at his best, everything sort of came down the left-hand side that wasn't on the back of James Henry, and the right winger spot was just forgotten about. You know, it was just come inside, it was nothing, just create space for Tavernier to bomb up and down, and our entire right-hand side for donkeys was Tavernier bombing up and down. No wonder the lad's knees have now given out. But again, he has managed to change that in his first year at this football club, in which he joined on loan on the back of some questions about his injury fitness and how little football he's actually played over the last couple of years, and having to adapt to Scottish football into a team that again was going through absolute turmoil with several players on the decline, even the likes of Tavernier falling off a cliff from where he was the year before, other key players leaving the dressing room, us taking some punts in terms of younger players, and even a managerial change. Yet despite all that madness, one of the most consistent players we've had has been one of the newest guys in the building, and for me, that's pretty damn impressive. But again, I feel like I can appreciate that, especially when I look at it in that context and I look at it through that lens. Everything he had to overcome before even a ball was kicked, and after the ball was kicked this season, to have that campaign is pretty damn impressive. But again, where I do give praise to a lot of that, I'm also not sitting here pretending he's the perfect player and he's a world beater and he's never had a bad game, because that would be a lie as well. There has been lulls, there has been bad games, there is sometimes this man frustrates me because he does take a breather in a game and he's no sprint here and he's no pressing here, and when you've got him doing that alongside a couple of other players that didn't always commit to the press, it does look bad on the eye to watch, and you see massive gaps, and then we're getting overrun here and there's space here, and you're tracking it back and you're looking, you're picking 1, 2 and 3 and be like, oh my god, it's a mess. There has been those wee moments as well, and I think that is important to the balance. But see, at the same time, in terms of referencing balance, is there any wonder the man man needs to take a breather and why he is blowing out his arse, because he came to this football club not exactly known for his pure fitness, by the way. He has struggled with injuries and everything like that. We will touch on that a wee bit later, but considering the amount of work he has to do every single time he touches a ball for us, because we watch the games, we see him getting doubled up on, right? We all know he wants to cut into his left hand side, and so they double up. They've got that prepared, they've got that checked every single time, so he needs to be better and sharper than two players every time he touches the football. He has got that burden now of being our most creative player and required to be our most creative player, and to be fair, he's done it this season. Again, the most creative player in Scottish football, but at the same time I'm sitting watching a guy again get doubled up on. Years and years and years of watching Ryan Kent doing the left hand side. We seen it together. He was getting doubled up on. Why? Because we never had a right winger and they could afford the opposition to move another player in there because they only had to worry about a fullback bombing frickin' forward. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, we finally have a right winger, but we've lost the left winger, and now the exact same thing is happening. We're watching Cerny getting doubled up on because the opposition can afford to leave one there, because all they've got to worry about at the left hand side is a fullback bombing forward on his own. It's a cruel, cruel cycle, ladies and gentlemen. But again, the one thing you would say if you compare Cerny to Kent is Cerny's goal output and what he's managed to do in terms of putting the ball in the back of net is significantly better than Kent was. And I like Kent a lot for everything that he done at this club, but if you put them into context, Cerny is just a different type of threat. And I think to myself, can we afford to lose that level of threat? That's one of the questions of the video, and it will be one of the questions of the summer because of the numbers and the statistics that we will soon break down. We haven't seen that for donkeys at this club, especially from the wide position. As much as I like Kent goal tallies, do you want to compare them? You know, 3 goals a year, 3 goals a year. Do you know what I mean? Cerny in the SPFL alone this season has scored more goals than Kent did in nearly 3 years for this football club. In fact, Cerny in the Europa League through 12 games scored more goals than Kent did in 2 years overall for this club. So again, can we afford to lose that level of talent? That's one of the main questions I'm going to have for you down in the comments section below. But I am kind of talking around these statistics. I'm kind of talking around these stats because you know I'm not exactly the biggest fan of stats. Yes, they're important sometimes to put things into context. But again, the eye test is more important than anything. And they maybe tell you what stats canny. But I know so many is love stats and statistics. So let's go ahead and dive into them. Cerny, going into the last game of the season at this weekend, has played 51 games in all competitions, soon to be 52, which is impressive in itself, because again, as excited we were in the summer when I sat here in front of you talking about a winger, the big question and the big negative and the big worry for a lot of people was this man's injury history and obviously his fitness issues that were well documented early on in his career. Well, he's went ahead and played 51 games, soon to be 52, which is the actual most games he's ever played in his entire freaking career. More than double what he did last season for Wolfsburg, and ending up combining most of his time in Holland, if I'm honest, 2-3 seasons worth together, because he struggled so much with injuries. The most he's ever played prior to this season for Rangers is 41 games in all competitions. Again, he smashed that, and he's always been available. And again, some of the praise we give to Tab and Save to Dessers, etc., is the best ability is availability. Well, Cerny is right in there as well, and he has been able to be relied on to be there, despite we've seen it again in games where I don't think he has been fully fit, where I think he has been playing with knocks, but he's just bolt in to it and he's put his body on the line. I'm seeing him hang in there in extra time where he's barely been able to move because he doesn't want to make the same mistake that was made in a cup final where he was withdrawn because he was blown and he never got to take a penalty. I saw him put his heart and soul on the line in that game to make sure he was available to take a penalty kick, no matter what, because he wanted the responsibility to put this club on his shoulders. So he did buy in it, and I am impressed with that type of attitude. And again, I think a lot of fans are. That's all we want to see. We want to see players that when they leave the park or they get substituted or the game finishes, we say he's busted his arse and ran his heart out. And I think even when Cerny started to decline over the last month or two in terms of performances, we all knew why. It's because he was a burst ball. But again, each and every single time he was there to play, then again, he was still scoring. He was still assisting That's impressive. Can you imagine a season if we actually have a bit of talent in the left-hand side? If we actually increase their talent overall in the squad, these younger players get a wee bit more experience. We get a manager that's got a structure and style in place where it isn't just kick the ball to Cerny, kick the ball to Cerny, kick the ball to Cerny. What he could do if he's no needing to beat two men every single time he touches the ball. What type of weapon he could be if we had a wee bit of balance down the left. He could be even more impressive than this campaign, which again, from the right wing standards, we've not seen in over 2 decades. But having defeated the right wing curse and defeated his injury questions, what did he actually manage to do when he went out and played those 51 games? Well, I've probably already referenced it too many times, but in terms of Scottish football, the SPFL, which is the priority for some of the viewers right here, myself included, he has been fantastic. He is the most creative player. He's created the most chances in Scottish football, which is sensational, bringing somebody in alone and going ahead and seeing that. It's just unfortunate for Cerny that he also plays for one of the most wasteful teams in Scottish football. His assist totals could truly be mind-blowing based on what he's actually been able to create for himself and for others. But moving on there, from the 32 games that he has played in the SPFL, he has managed to bag in 16 goal contributions, which is again incredible, having scored 12 goals and having just 4 assists, which did sound wrong to me because I think of how much he does create. But again, circling back to what we said, I then remembered we are one of the most wasteful teams in the league and we miss chance after chance after chance per game. It requires us 6 or 7 clear chances to score, and then you understand why that stat is just at 4. But again, taking a step back, 32 games in the league, having 16 goal contributions from the right wing spot, it's not bad. But where league football is the priority to me and some people watching today's video, it's not the priority to everyone, as they want to know the players that we bring in, the money that we spend on these players, they can go ahead and perform in the toughest competition we can play, which is obviously in Europe. So what's he been able to do? Did he sink or swim in terms of the European campaigns? Well, he played in both of them, the Champions League qualifiers and the Europa League. How did Mr. Vaclav go ahead and do? Well, let's go ahead and find out then, shall we? Starting off with the Champions League qualifiers, obviously he was just in the door, but he played 2 games during that in which he had 1 assist, a 50% hit rate, if you will. Not too shabby, Alonso, right there. But moving away from the Champions League and getting to Europa League, the bread and butter, the meat of our season, and probably the only thing we've been able to cheer this year. He played in all 12 games in the Europa League, and during that time he scored 6 goals and grabbed 2 assists, meaning in the 12 games he played at the Europa League level, he managed to grab 8 goal contributions in 12, which again is fantastic for a winger, and numbers we've never seen in the winger position again for decades. But again, to finish up the numbers and stats properly then, shall we? If you want to take a step back and chuck all the European numbers together, combining the 2 competitions, that's 14 games for Rangers in Europe this year, in which he has 9 goal contributions. If you look at his overall season and the 51 that he's went ahead and played, he has managed to bring in 27 goal contributions, which if you break that down is averaging a goal or assist every 1.8 ish. I think it's around about that maths anyway, and that again is outstanding from Mr. Vaclav, especially again when you put it into where he's been this season, who he's had to play with, and the mess that's actually fricking been there. You know what I mean? Everyone's forgot. We never even played at Ibrox. We weren't even able to bed these players in at Ibrox for the first month or 2 of this season. Everything that could have been an excuse for these players and these boys brought into this club to fail, Vaclav's flipped it and just had an incredible year. So aye, it has been so damn impressive, but again it could have been even better if we hadn't been one of the most wasteful teams in Scottish football. His assists could be even better, and he probably should be sitting with double digits assists, and those numbers should be even better. But maybe it's almost a blessing in disguise in terms of our chances of keeping the laddie, because if he'd done his goal output, which he has done, which has been simply a joke, and then he also had the assists to back up, would we be able to keep him? No chance. And that is where the problems start to really kick in, and that's why it is a Cerny problem, because he has been so good for us this season. It's almost flipped the narrative that was there, and he's raised his stock to a much higher level than it was before he came in the door, which again is what loans are supposed to be for. But again, it's why you can't fall in love with a lone player. But prior to him joining, his career was sort of at a standstill. It wasn't really working out at Wolfsburg. He was just sort of lingering out. He had those years worth of injuries despite being promising in Dutch football. It was sort of there, but now after 51 games at us, and especially in the European competitions, he's shown he is actually a pretty damn good footballer. Now, it's unclear whether or not Wolfsburg have changed their mind on Cerny and maybe see a chance and think he can finally be the player that they spent the money on to bring in the door in the first place, the punt they took from his time in Dutch football, or whether or not they're sitting saying, oh my god, he's played well, let's cash him in and sell him to the highest bidder. Another problem is the fact we didn't have an option to buy, so what would you spend on Vaclav Cerny? You know what I mean? If it is £6 or £7 million, do you think he is going ahead and being worth that? I personally think he is, based on what we've spent elsewhere, and go for a hell of a lot less, but you are entertaining a different ball game now than what you were at this point last frickin' season, so that's been a wee bit of say run. But again, nobody could have guaranteed that it would have been a success and would have been wanting to spend £5 million or so on him, especially when we committed to the money that we had made on another loanee. Dinna worry, we'll go ahead and get there. But again, that is a problem. There is no option to buy. So what do you spend on Cerny? Do you give a chunk of your budget to bring in the same player, or do you try and use that elsewhere? Again, we're unsure what our actual budget is when this pending takeover does get completed. But again, it is a major issue. It is a major problem. And also, so it is the fact that there is a painful, vicious cycle that I don't know if anybody has actually went ahead and clocked on in. And it is these loan players coming in to this football club and looking better than all our players that are actually on our books, and every single time these loan players come in, we fall in love with them, they look great, they are our most creative players, they are our attacking threat, and then they're gone after a freaking year, and we have to try and rebuild it back up all air again. I'm talking about Tillman. Look where his career is now. Look at the money he's worth now. He's an absolute joke what he's doing. He's just won the league for PSV and everything like that as well. Then you had Sima. Again, his season has been sort of blighted by injury, but he's no short of offers right now as well, and again, it remains unclear will it ever come back up the road, or is he going to get a big move that he's probably expected to with the wages are there. And then obviously Cerny as well. You put them in back to back seasons. Every year we have the same problem. The loanee comes in, looks great, and we didn't keep them. And just saying their names fills my head with ideas. Can you imagine what our team would actually look like if we had Sima on the left, Tillman in the middle, and Cerny on the right? Like, it's just cruel, ladies and gentlemen. I've had them all at different seasons. Imagine if they were combined. Any of the one, imagine if we could have kept any of them. It would have been very, very nice. And I imagine we would be a much more successful team. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And maybe the most saddest thing about this, if you look at our loanees and what we have loaned in to the football club, the 4 players we've really loaned in over the last couple of years, the only one of the 4 we've been able to keep is frickin' Oscar Cortez, for rumoured to be about £4.5 million. Now, I'm keeping everything crossed that Cortez could defy the odds and flip it and end up being the player we all hope it can be, but that's just the facts, you know what I mean? The Mount Rushmore of the last 4 loans troops, the worst one we've got is probably the worst one out of the 4, and we spent that money on him. And then you start to look at it, £5-6 million for Cerny isn't too bad when you put it into the same bracket of what we've committed to spend on Oscar Cortez. It is very, very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. But again, these figures regarding Cerny, how much it's going to cost, is just based on what it's speculated or what it's rumoured to be. No one's got the concrete evidence. Maybe Wolfsburg does just want to rip up and move it on. But again, he is on a very, very pretty pen in terms of his wages, and his agent will not be daft, just like Sima's agent wasn't daft, just like Tillman's agent wasn't daft. They'll use this campaign of being very good, especially in Europe, to get the highest possible wage that they can get for their client, which again is their job. But again, it might price us out another very, very talented loanee that's came here, in my opinion, played very well. But that's sort of the video, ladies and gentlemen. That is my thoughts and opinions on Cerny. Again, I was going to wait to the end of the season, but now that he's pretty much said goodbye on Instagram and he is sort of lingering in sort of limbo right now, we don't know if we will keep him, we don't know if we want to keep him, we don't know who our manager's going to be, we don't know what the spending's going to be. We are just sort of stuck here, and there is so much uncertainty. But the one thing I want to try and get certain from you down in the comment section below is whether or not you believe, based on what Cerny's done this season, reason that we should push the boat out and try and bring him back next year? Would you keep Cerny? Yes or no? Would you commit the money on it, or do you think the money needs to be spent elsewhere to improve different areas? You can let me know down there in the old comment section. And as always, I've been CJ Novo 992. Thank you so much for watching. All the best, and bye bye.